Hi, my name is Stephanie Mbida. I am a 14-year-old university student at the City College of New York. As you can see here, this is a collection of all of the letters that I have received from some of the world's most influential people. I've received letters from presidents, kings, queens, CEOs of the most powerful companies in the world, and so on, about the world financial crisis. Many of these leaders have thanked me for my suggestions on what I believe is the true cause of the financial crisis and how I believe that we should resolve it. This is probably the largest collection of letters from world leaders for one private person in the world. I believe, however, that maybe the fact that I've received so many letters has actually led many people to doubt these letters' authenticity. Many people have told me, after finding out how many letters I received, that they believe that it was not possible for a teenager like me to receive so many letters from so many world leaders on an issue as difficult and hard to resolve as the world financial crisis. However, as you can see for yourself from these letters and envelopes, these letters are very real. Although many of these world leaders have written letters that touch me very much, because I understand that it's very difficult for them to have enough time to address just their own issues, not to mention to write to a private citizen like myself. Some of these letters have touched me more than others. One example of these letters is this letter that I received from the president of Erasmus University, Rotterdam. In her letter to me, Mrs. Pauline van der Meermoor said, "Dear Stephanie, thank you for your letter with enclosures dated 14 April. I was moved by your thoughts and particularly by your initiative to share your ideas with just about every world leader on the planet. Truly remarkable." After she goes on to explain what she thinks about what I said in my letter, she says, "I have written a blog about your letter, which you can access by visiting our website. I will also reference your thoughts at a speech which I will deliver at the annual Thought Leadership Conference in Estoril, Portugal on the 4th and 5th of May. Hopefully these acts will help to promote your initiative." She finishes the letter by saying, "If you ever cross the Atlantic for a visit to our small country in Europe, I should be delighted to welcome you personally for a visit to Erasmus University, Rotterdam. With all good wishes for the future, yours sincerely." Another letter that touched me very much was the letter that I received from the president of the University of Cincinnati, Mr. Gregory Williams. In his letter to me, he actually invited me and my mother to go and see him in Cincinnati. These are some pictures of our visit. During our visit, he actually signed a copy of his autobiography, Life on the Color Line, as you can see here. Many of the university chancellors who wrote to me actually invited me, such as the president of the University of Cambridge. In her letter to me, Professor Alison Richards said, "Dear Miss Mbida, thank you so much for your letter of March 1st with its enclosures. I am very impressed by your thoughtfulness and maturity, and most interested in your engagement with weighty issues. Your SAT results are outstanding and obviously pave the way to a bright future for you. Perhaps one day you might consider applying to come to Cambridge." The president of Columbia University also invited me as well. In his letter, Mr. Lee Bollinger said, "Dear Stephanie, thank you so much for your letter addressing the root causes of the current world economic crisis. Your analysis of the situation shows great insight and understanding. You are to be commended for your level of energy and diligence in reminding world leaders of the utter seriousness of this global problem." After he goes on in detail about what he believes is part of the solution to the crisis, he says, "May you persevere in the course you have chosen, and when it comes time to select a university, I hope you will consider Columbia University." Many of the letters that touched me as well actually came from CEOs, such as the CEO of Ecolab. In his letter, Mr. Doug Baker said, Dear Stephanie, you are an amazing young woman, and it was a pleasure to read your letter. Its arrival was timely. It was on my desk when I returned from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. As you can imagine, many of the very issues you mentioned in your letter were addressed at the forum. Stephanie, it's obvious you care deeply about mankind, and I have no doubt the world is a better place because of you. All the best, Doug Baker. A letter that I really appreciate a lot is this letter that I received from Mrs. Gail Olivier of AXA. In her letter, she said, Dear Stephanie, Henri de Castries, Chairman of the Management Board of AXA, has asked me to answer your brilliant letter. I have read carefully your thesis about the global financial crisis, and I found it very smart. I am convinced that if big companies embody the values you advocate, it would be a step in the right direction. I promise you, dear Stephanie, to do my best to spread generosity and liability within AXA culture and among all our 170,000 employees worldwide. Thank you for the interest you expressed in the AXA group, and good luck for your studies. Even CEOs as important as the CEO of GM wrote to me. Mr. Edward E. Whitaker wrote one of my favorite letters in which he said, Dear Stephanie, thank you for your recent letter. As you can imagine, I receive numerous letters and emails daily from people providing their thoughts and opinions on all kinds of issues. I must say, not many of them are as well written and thoughtful as your letter. I am totally impressed with you, Stephanie. I think it is safe to say that not many kids your age have given the economic crisis that our country faces much thought, much less determined its cause, and suggested a solution. He then goes on to describe how GM is planning to resolve the world economic crisis and how he thinks that what I said to him in his letter was a very wise suggestion. At the end he says, keep doing your very best, Stephanie, and you will reach your goal of improving the lives of people in need around the world. Some of the many letters that I received were letters from presidents, as you can see from this part here. However, one of my favorite letters is the first letter I ever received, which was the letter from President William Clinton when I was only 8 years old. Honestly, I always have appreciated this letter so much because it's a very big honor for someone as important as President Bill Clinton to take the time to write to a little 8-year-old girl like I was back then. And until today, it still surprises me that someone as important as he is would take so much time to write to a little girl like me. It's one of my favorite letters, and I don't know if I will ever be able to pay back everything he gave to me just because of that letter. In this letter he said, Dear Stephanie, thank you so much for your letter. Your concern and support mean a great deal to me, and I'm sorry I was unable to respond sooner. He goes on to say that he was very impressed by the thought that I've given to improving our country and our world, and he ends his letter by saying, Your generation is the future of our country, and I'm honored to have been your president. Among the many letters that I received from presidents and heads of state is this letter from the Queen of England, this letter from President Barack Obama, this letter from the Pope, and these 2 letters from George W. Bush. I would like to take a little time to read the letter from President Barack Obama because it did touch me a lot. In this letter, as you can see here, he said, Thank you for writing to me at the White House. Your thoughts on the issue facing our nation are important to me, and your letter will help me as I work to build a better tomorrow for your generation. Many other letters that I received were from the ministers of education. As you can see here, one letter that was really unique was this letter that I received from the Indian Ministry of Education. Another really cool letter that I received was this letter here from the Danish Minister of Education, Ms. Tina Nedergaard. In her letter, she said, Dear Stephanie Mbida, thank you very much for your interesting and thoughtful letter. I agree with you that a realistic and responsible approach to economic matters is the only way forward, and I was very inspired by your thoughts and suggestions. Furthermore, I am keeping your suggestions in mind, and I wish you all the best in the future. She even signed this autographed picture of herself and sent it to me. And one letter that really touched me a lot was this letter that I received from the Icelandic Minister of Education, Science and Culture. She sent me this letter almost 6 months after I wrote to her. And this letter is, as you can see here, very long and very detailed. She wrote so much that I actually can't take the time to read all of it. But it really touched me, and it was an honor that even so many months after she wrote to me, she would still take the time to respond. One of my favorite letters is also this letter from the Poland Minister of Education, which was so beautifully packaged, as you can see here. This is the letter, and it's just really awesome. After all of these letters, I actually finished writing a book about the responses that these world leaders have sent me and all the ideas and suggestions that they presented to me in their letters. Right now, I have not been able to publish it yet, as I do not yet have a good literary agent. However, I'm looking for a really good one, as I believe that if this book is published all over the world, the public will be able to use it to solve the world financial crisis, as it is a powerful tool and it details everything that these leaders have said to me and how we can truly resolve the financial recession. One last thing that I would like to note is that I hope that this video reaches millions of children around the world, because I want them all to realize that they can contribute to even some of the biggest issues in the world, like the world financial crisis, and that if they study well and they work really hard to make sure that they have something important to say, they can even reach world leaders like I did, and they can change the world.